Okay, let's dive into a story. It's about how a simple, everyday task went terribly wrong and led to a serious, life-altering injury. Now, this isn't just a dry rundown of a workplace incident report. It's a really powerful lesson in safety. So, we're going to break it all down. At the very heart of his whole thing is one person. Just a teammate. Like anyone you might work with, just going about their day. But in a safety investigation, that person also becomes a number. Incident 259432. It's a label for a single moment that had these huge, life-changing consequences. So you have a routine trash run, a simple step stool, and a permanent injury. How on earth did these three things connect? Well, the answer, as it always is in the details. The incident report itself is pretty direct, pretty blunt. On that day, a teammate was just taking out the trash. A task they had probably done 100 times before without even thinking about it. As they were stepping down, their foot slipped. And in that one split second, the full force of that fall came down on their left leg. The result was a fractured femur, which is one of the most severe breaks a person can possibly have. An injury this bad is rarely, if ever, caused by just a single misstep. So investigators started looking beyond the fall itself and into the environment where it all happened. And what they found? Well, that's the key to this whole story. So what was the hazard that everyone had just been walking past day after day? Turns out, the biggest risk was hiding in plain sight, a piece of equipment being used in a way it was absolutely never designed for. And this slide just perfectly illustrates the core of the problem. That step stool, it was designed to be temporary, movable, but in reality, it had been bolted to the floor. They turned a quick fix into a permanent, uninspected hazard. But that single issue was made so much worse by everything else going on. The area was poorly lit, there was a low railing right nearby, creating a trip hazard. The trash can was put in a spot that forced people to use these makeshift steps. And to top it all off, the employee was new, only 1 month on the job. It was a literal perfect storm of hazards. Now, the report does mention that the employee wasn't using 3 points of contact, 2 feet and a hand or 2 hands and a foot. But it is so critical to see this action in the context of that incredibly hazardous environment we just talked about, a system that was basically setting them up for failure. So here's the thing. There's a tool designed to prevent these exact situations. It's a tool that every single person has the power and, frankly, the responsibility to use. It's called Stop Work Authority. The concept is simple, but it is incredibly powerful. If you see something that looks unsafe, you have the authority and the responsibility to stop the job right then and there until it's made safe. It basically empowers every single person to be a leader in safety. Okay, so that's the big question, right? When should you actually use it? Well, the review they did after the incident gives us a really clear guide. Just think of these 3 simple triggers. You stop work if the area changes, like a new piece of equipment shows up. You stop if the task itself changes. And, maybe most importantly, you stop if your gut just tells you something isn't safe. And stopping the work isn't the end of it. Far from it. It's actually the beginning of a conversation. It brings everybody together, the employees doing the work, their supervisors and management, to figure out the safest way forward. The more eyes you have on a problem, the better the solution's going to be. So, let's see how all this actually leads to real change. How did the facility take the painful lessons from this terrible incident and turn them into concrete actions to protect everyone? The response was fast and it was layered. Immediately, work stopped for his safety meeting with everyone. In the short term, the problem equipment, those step stools, were removed completely. For the long term, they restricted access to that whole hazardous area. And, crucially, the training on stop work authority was reinforced for every single person. And all those discussions really boil down to 3 fundamental rules. Don't take shortcuts, stick to the marked paths, and never, ever go into an area that isn't properly lit. These are simple rules that absolutely could have prevented this incident. The biggest takeaway from Incident 259432 isn't about blaming one person for slipping. It's about our shared responsibility. It's about building a culture where a bolted-down temporary step stool isn't seen as a convenience, but as a giant red flag that anyone and everyone feels empowered to act on. And that leaves all of us with one final crucial question.
It's one you should ask not just today after hearing this, but every single day you're on the job. What temporary fix, what shortcut, what small overlooked hazard have you walked past, assuming it was someone else's problem to solve?